Picture this: a grand Renaissance hall lit only by flickering candlelight. The air smells faintly of beeswax and burning oil. Velvet drapes sway gently with the winter wind sneaking in from a half-closed balcony door. You stand in the middle of the room, surrounded by marble columns, priceless paintings, and gold leaf furniture, the wealth of a lifetime earned, defended, and cherished. At the far end of the room is a man your most trusted ally. You've fought wars together, you've shared bread and hunger and wine and victory. When enemies surrounded you, he swore his loyalty with hand on heart. You believed him. And in 3 days, he will sell you to those enemies for a pouch of coins and a whisper of power. You will not see the betrayal coming. You will not sense the shifting tides of loyalty until they have already drowned you. By the time you realize it, the damage will be irreversible. This is not just a dramatic story, it is history's most repeated tragedy. Kings brought down by their closest friends, generals handed over to their enemies by their own captains, merchants ruined by business partners they trusted more than family. The list stretches from ancient Rome to the boardrooms of today's billion-dollar corporations. Niccolo Machiavelli saw these patterns everywhere. In his Florence, a city of wealth, art, and beauty, the true currency was trust, and it was counterfeited more often than gold. Machiavelli's political career placed him at the center of a chessboard where alliances shifted daily. In 1 week, he could negotiate an alliance between Florence and a neighboring state. By the next, that same state had secretly signed a treaty with Florence's enemies. He saw that promises, even ones sealed with oaths, handshakes, and holy blessings, dissolved the moment they became inconvenient. One man in particular shaped Machiavelli's view, Cesare Borgia. Borgia was a prince without illusions. He didn't believe in loyalty for loyalty's sake. His alliances were built on fear, mutual benefit, or debt, never on blind trust. When his generals outlived their usefulness, he eliminated them, not because he was cruel for cruelty's sake, but because he knew a man who can betray you eventually will. Machiavelli met Borgia in person, sent us Florence's ambassador. He was impressed, even captivated by the man's calculated approach to power. Borgia's enemies feared him, his allies respected him, and neither group truly trusted him. But it didn't matter. He survived and thrived in an era where a single mistake could mean the end of your rule or your life. From this and countless other experiences, Machiavelli formed a chilling conclusion. Trust is not a virtue. It is a weapon that can be turned against you. To him, betrayal was not rare. It was the default human response when self-interest demanded it. Love, loyalty, friendship, these were fragile threads easily severed by fear or greed. And yet, here's the cruel twist. To lead, to build, to succeed, you must still work with people. You cannot survive in total isolation. The challenge, then, is not to trust blindly, but to trust as if betrayal is already in motion and you are simply buying time before it arrives. In the next part, we will explore the moments in history that proved Machiavelli right, from Julius Caesar's last breath to the fall of empire, and see how these betrayals mirror the ones we face today. Because while the tools have changed, the nature of people has not. When Machiavelli warned against trusting people, he was not speaking from the comfort of an armchair philosopher, spinning abstract theories about human nature. He was speaking from the scars of experience. He had seen men smile as they plotted each other's downfall. He had shaken hands with allies who were already making secret deals with the enemy. He had watched Florence's fate swing violently, not because of grand battles or divine will, but because of the personal ambitions of men who valued gold over honor and survival over loyalty. For Machiavelli, betrayal was not an occasional tragedy. It was a recurring feature of political life. The only real question was when it would strike and whether you would be ready. To understand his cold, almost ruthless logic, we need to walk through the moments in history that burned these lessons into his mind and why. Centuries later, they still echo in boardrooms, governments, and even personal relationships today. In 44 BCE, Rome was not merely a city, it was the beating heart of the known world, the center of wealth, power, and ambition. Julius Caesar, the soldier, statesman, and political genius had climbed from an ambitious young general to Rome's absolute ruler. To many, he was invincible. His power was unmatched, his reforms reshaping the republic into something entirely new. He had enemies, of course, but also friends, loyal friends, or so he believed. Among those friends was Marcus Junius Brutus, a man Caesar treated almost like a son. Brutus had fought by his side, shared his victories, and earned his trust so completely that Caesar ignored whispers of conspiracy involving him. Warnings were brushed aside. After all, how could someone so close ever turn? On the morning of the Ides of March, Caesar entered the Senate without bodyguards, without suspicion. The Senate chamber was filled with familiar faces, senators, allies, friends, but within moments, the air turned heavy with tension. Knives were drawn, cloaks swirled. The sound of steel piercing flesh broke the stunned silence. As the blows rained down, Caesar saw the unthinkable. Brutus among the attackers. The man he had embraced as kin was now one of his killers. According to legend, Caesar's final words, "E tu, brute," were less an accusation and more a moment of despair. The instant he understood that trust, without fear, is an open invitation to treachery. To Machiavelli, the tragedy was not merely the betrayal itself. It was that Caesar had made betrayal so easy. He had not instilled enough fear, nor established consequences strong enough to outweigh ambition. In the end, Brutus made a simple calculation. The potential gains from Caesar's death outweighed any loyalty to Caesar's life. And so, the choice was made, fast forward several centuries, to the twilight of the Byzantine Empire. Here, betrayal took a quieter, but no less deadly form. The Ottomans, rising in strength, did not always need to smash through walls with siege engines. Sometimes, they simply bought their way in. Machiavelli knew well the stories of governors entrusted with the sacred duty of defending their people who secretly negotiated with the enemy. For a chest of gold or the promise of safety, they would hand over the city keys. No siege, no bloody battle, just a quiet sound of gates opening in the night, followed by the boots of an invading army echoing on the stones. The results were the same as if the walls had been stormed: slaughter, slavery, and the end of independence. The difference was that the defenders themselves became the instrument of destruction. The people they were sworn to protect were sold like property. Machiavelli's conclusion was brutally simple. Loyalty, in the absence of strong incentives or severe consequences, is fragile. People will choose their own survival and enrichment over duty unless the cost of betrayal is made unbearable. But Machiavelli did not need to rely solely on distant history. In his own Florence, he saw the lesson repeated almost daily. Renaissance Italy was a chessboard of constantly shifting alliances. Florence, Venice, Milan, Naples, the Papal States, all jockeying for advantage, all smiling in public while plotting in private. One week, Florence might secure a treaty with a neighboring state. Grand banquets would be held, speeches, magi promises exchanged, yet by the next month, that same ally might have switched sides, drawn by a better offer, more territory, richer trade rights, or stronger military protection. As a diplomat, Machiavelli spent years navigating this treacherous terrain. He learned that in politics, the words ally and friend were not permanent designations. They were temporary contracts, written in the sand, ready to be erased by the next wave of opportunity. You might think these betrayals are the stuff of dusty history books, but look closer. The same dynamics play out today in politics, in business, even in personal lives. Politicians who once praised their leaders publicly later turn against them when the polls shift. Corporate executives pledge loyalty to their company only to jump ship when a competitor offers a bigger paycheck. Even in friendships and relationships, trust without accountability can collapse the moment personal gain is on the line. From these bloody chapters of history in the living politics of his own time, Machiavelli carved out a set of unshakable principles. 1. People are loyal to themselves first. Any loyalty to you exists only as long as it serves their interests. 2. Fear is a stronger guarantee than love. Love is fragile. It fades in the cold wind of hardship. Fear endures because it has consequences. 3. Trust without leverage is a trap. If betrayal carries no cost, it is not a matter of if, but when. 4. Always prepare for betrayal. Not because it will always happen, but because it can, and the cost of preparation is always less than the cost of recovery. To Machiavelli, the lesson was clear: hope for loyalty, but never rely on it. Structure your power so that betrayal becomes not just immoral, but unprofitable, inconvenient, and dangerous. That is the only form of trust that survives the test of time. It's tempting to imagine that these lessons about betrayal belong locked away in dusty history books, buried alongside faded portraits of kings and generals. We like to think that we, in our modern, interconnected, tech-savvy world, have moved beyond such crude treacheries. But betrayal has indicted, has merely adapted, changing its wardrobe and perfecting its disguise. Today, treachery often wears a suit and tie, smiles for the camera, and posts motivational quotes on social media. In business, the betrayals rarely come with swords drawn. They come with a quiet email, a sudden resignation, or a contract termination notice delivered just before a critical meeting. Trusted partners, the ones who once toasted to your shared success, can vanish the moment quarterly profits dip. You are left holding not only the debts, but also the public shame, while they emerge unscathed, already networking at the next industry gala. In politics, the knives are sharper than ever, though now they are wielded in press conferences and on social media feeds. Alliances crumble, not under cannon fire, but under the shifting winds of public opinion. Yesterday's closest ally can transform into today's most vocal critic, not because of a fundamental moral disagreement, but because a new poll suggested that your approval rating has become politically inconvenient. Public loyalty, it turns out, is only as strong as the next election cycle. And in personal life, the place we most wish for loyalty betrayal often feels the deepest. The friends who swore to stand by you no matter what sometimes vanish the moment your hardships require their real sacrifice. The ones who cheered your victories may not have the strength or the will to endure your defeats. They don't necessarily hate you. They simply fear being weighed down by your burdens. In this way, personal betrayals are often quieter than political or corporate ones, but they cut far closer to the heart. The stage props have changed, boardroom deals instead of royal courts, leaked emails instead of intercepted letters, quiet withdrawals of support instead of open declarations of war. Yet the motive is exactly the same as it was 500 years ago. Self-interest first, loyalty second, morality, perhaps somewhere further down the list. Machiavelli would not advise you to live in a state of constant paranoia, flinching at every shadow or seeing enemies behind every smile. That is the path of the fearful, and fear, ironically, makes one easier to manipulate. Instead, he would tell you to live with strategic caution, to trust, but to trust with your eyes open and your defenses ready. Trust, but verify. Faith in another person's word may be admirable, but blind faith is an engraved invitation to disaster. Whether in business or personal life, protect yourself with evidence, contracts, written agreements, or other safeguards that leave no room for misunderstanding. Make loyalty beneficial. People are rarely loyal for purely noble reasons. They are loyal because it costs less than betrayal, because staying by your side is more rewarding than leaving. A wise leader or partner structures relationships so that loyalty is in everyone's best interest. Hold leverage. Friendship is a warm comfort, but leverage is a cold necessity. Ensure that those who might betray you know that doing so will carry a real, tangible cost, whether in reputation, opportunity, or access. Without consequences, even good intentions can erode. Diversify relationships. If a single person or group has the power to destroy you, they also have the power to control you. Build multiple alliances, nurture multiple sources of support, and ensure your survival does not rest on one fragile connection. For Machiavelli, the essential question was never simply, should I trust people? That is far too naive. The true question was, how can I trust people without giving them the power to destroy me? He did not see trust as a sacred virtue bestowed upon the worthy. He saw it as a calculated exchange, a transaction in which both sides weigh risks and benefits. You extend trust, not because you believe betrayal is impossible, but because you have prepared yourself to survive it when that fit arrives. This is the hard truth most people avoid. The danger is not in trusting others. The danger lies in trusting without protection. History shows us that the price for that mistake is rarely just emotional disappointment. It is the collapse of influence, the downfall of kingdoms, the ruin of reputations, and in darker chapters, the loss of life itself. In the modern world, the battlefield has shifted. The weapons may now be words, contracts, and digital leaks instead of swords and spears, but the stakes are just as high. A careless trust can cost you your company, your public standing, your closest friendships. If you are unprepared, even the life you've spent decades building. And so Machiavelli's advice endures Trust if you must, but always guard the gates. Give others your hand, but never give them your throat.